And we are back. Yes, indeed. Welcome back to Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens, below the line with the movers, the shakers, the film and TV makers, those producers, directors, writers, actors, cinematographers, production designers, sound mixers, sound editors, costume designers, choreographers, composers, film editors, you name it. We talk to all of them. And boy, oh boy, you know, we weren't here last week for 4th of July. We're making up for that today. I'm going to jump right in here in a second because our first callers are on the line. But just want to let you know, we're going to be talking about Confidential Informant with director and co-writer Michael Oblowitz and one of General Hospital's faves, JON LINDSTROM, Kevin Collins, and Ryan Chamberlain on GH. John is in Confidential Informant, and John is here with Michael. The midpoint of the show, writer, director, editor Benjamin Pollacck is going to be joining me to talk about his new short film that is debuting at the LA Shorts Fest on July 20th. But right now, all right, Pam, we're going to bring them live. Pam's all discombobulated. We have talent call in early, and it's just amazing. John, are you there?
I am here.
Hi, John. Hi, Michael. You there too?
I'm here. Thank you very much so.
I can't tell you guys. I am so excited to have you guys on the show to talk about Confidential Informant. And John, thank you for making this happen.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, anytime that I get to talk about Michael Oblowitz is a good day.
and
anytime I get to talk with John. You know, we were neighbors for the longest time in Venice.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Wow.
Shooting pellet guns at the drug dealers on the street.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I know how that is. I'm just over in Culver City. I know it well. But this is so exciting to have both of you here. John, you already know, I really love Confidential Informant. I've seen...
Yeah, I was so thrilled to get that piece of information from you.
I have seen various things being written out there, and I rarely look at what other people write because, quite honestly, I don't care. And most of them don't know what they're talking about anyway. And I think that's the case here with what I'm seeing. Some people writing about Confidential Informant, I don't think they understand film noir. I don't think they understand what a thriller is. And they certainly don't understand filmmaking, the components of filmmaking, such as editing and cinematography. And then performance is a whole other thing. Because for my money, Michael has done an amazing job with this film. It is,
well, thank you very
Michael,
much.
It is steeped in noir. I love the color palette, that sickly kind of green, the underfunded precinct office, which is, and you perfectly cast Mel Gibson there. But I've got to say, it's just, on every level, I am beyond impressed with this film.
Well, you know what? Again, I'm so happy to hear you say that because I completely agree with you.
This is, the story itself is something we haven't seen. We're so used to police procedurals or cop films, but this really takes a look. It's a character study. This is absolutely a character study focusing on Dominic Purcell's character of Tom Moran and Nick Stahl's character of his partner Mike Thornton and their relationship. And above that, we get into the brotherhood with Mel Gibson as their captain, Captain Hickey. And then we've got our villainous, and I have to say it, Infernal Affairs. When you got Internal Affairs and Mel Gibson, you got to give a shout out to Lethal Weapon 3 and his jokes about Infernal Affairs, because that's exactly what, Officer Lerner is in wanting to find some dirt on Tom Moran and Mike Thornton. So you have all of these little pieces. and we look at the psyche, and there's commentary here about the police departments themselves and underpaid cops, something that we always hear about. And I know many cops over the decades, a lot of them out of Pacific Division, which you guys should know. And many have always had second jobs because they just don't make enough money to support families.
And I think what's really impressive about what Michael created here is that it's a character study in terms of the character of the cops, the overreaching cop mentality, which you don't see. In fact, a friend of mine watched it, if I may, Michael, real quickly. A friend of mine watched it who used to run a lot of television cop shows. And she watched it over the weekend, and she said, the performances of these two guys in particular, and I have to include Kate Bosworth in this as well, is that the mentality of these guys was very, very real to her. She worked with a lot of police whatever the word is, advisors on her shows. And she said these guys really bring to the forefront the reality of what a cop has to deal with and the price that they have to pay all the time. And I think Michael did an exceptional job in the look of the film, the tone of the film, how oppressive it feels on these two guys. So, and it's as singular as, to me, what the great Ken Russell could do. Michael has a very distinctive he does things that has very special touches in his work. And those are evident there. And so I'm done talking, and take it away, Michael.
Well, I just want to say thank you both for your kind words. I mean, reading some of these reviews, I was wondering what movie they were actually watching. Because we had one of the legends of cinematography, Andrei Barkovia, was at one of the screenings. And Andrei has won a number of Academy Awards for cinematography. He was the cinematographer on Prince of the Cities and Terms of Endearment. He's one of the great cinematographers. And he was complimenting Chris Squires, our director of photography, on such a beautiful muted palette and how he controlled the palette and, got a real film noir look. And I'm reading these reviews. Chris and I, yesterday, where someone accused him of shoddy camera work, and we were just flabbergasted. I mean, besides the fact that the film was done on a very low budget and we didn't have a long shooting schedule, which is no excuse, right? The fact that one of the critics accused the sets of being minimal and the paucity of the sets, he said, right? And I was wondering, did you actually not watch the film clearly, where it defines the offices that the cops worked in were not police stations per se, but underfunded, as you said, warehouses where they would set up their undercover narcotics operation so as not to draw attention to themselves. In fact, the only police precinct in the movie is the station where Moran is where Thornton is brought in for his interrogation.
In the third,
so it seems to me that that most everyone who saw this movie saw through the lens of an attack on Mel Gibson for whatever his perceived crimes against humanity are, in these current, the way they perceive his social beliefs or whatever his political beliefs to be, and the film is being criticized through that lens and not even given a chance at all to really see the light of day, which it's still managing to do because it's got very good placement on Amazon Prime. So I encourage everybody to go watch.
Michael, if I may, I mean, I think, I have to, based on some of the things I've read, and not all of them are, like that. Many I've read reviews that are much like what Debbie is saying. But I think there's always this preconception of what a cop movie is supposed to be. And this just isn't it. And I think what Debbie said earlier, that some people don't understand noir particularly. I mean, my first definition of noir is when a character makes a decision that they know can and probably will lead to their destruction. And that's exactly what Mike Thornton does. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, it has one of the strongest basic tenets of noir in it. Mm-hmm. But to read some reviews, I think they still think noir is supposed to be black and white.
I
clearly don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think their interpretations of genre film in general are very, very simplistic, and it was really. I mean, I was longing for the great days of Roger Ebert, who always gave my films good reviews. Even those days, I was criticized about, you know, for. I remember on the Roger Ebert show, I can't remember who the guy was with Roger Ebert on the original show, you know, the two critics.
Gene Siskel.
Sorry, what was his name?
Gene Siskel.
Gene Siskel, right. Siskel and Ebert. And Siskel was saying, well, it was a movie that I made that was in Sundance and Cannes and the competition called This World of the Fireworks. And Siskel said, oh, well, this director has much more style than substance, right? That was the criticism back then, because he's a music video director. So I got lambasted for being one of the first music video directors and having had a long career directing huge music videos. And Ebert replied, Roger Ebert, that why don't we stop looking at this guy's movies with the way it's shot, and let's look at it for what is shot. And he really got into my film, and it was an incredibly good review at the time. And I loved Roger Ebert ever since. And I'm really missing him today, because he would have really got this movie.
Well, sure. And I think you're in the same boat, along in another director whom is a dear friend and I love beyond belief, Mark Pellington. Mark, a long time music video director, and so many of his films, people just, reviewers and critics alike, just panned some of his stuff. And it's like, really? You know, he did a film, I Melt With You, which is just so powerful. And I think a big part of the problem is that so many of the reviewers out there, when they look at these films, they don't have enough life experience behind them or enough cinematic education behind them to understand these films. If it's not something that they've experienced or happened within the short, brief 20 years or maybe 30 years they've been on the planet, well, forget about it.
You know, I even worked with a producer once on a film that was an independent film, and he proudly proclaimed to me that he wouldn't watch anything that was made after the year 2000. Or before the year 2000, and I stood there just flabbergasted. This was on set. I was just utterly gobsmacked by this, you know, conscious refusal to educate themselves on the history of film and why what you see in the period that you decide to watch actually works because of everything that came before.
Yeah,
I
mean, I had a publicist many years ago, LA Film Festival, and some of us were standing around. We were talking about musicals and films, and I brought up An American in Paris and Singing in the Rain. And this publicist, a film publicist, stood there, straight-faced, and said, "What are those? I haven't heard of them."
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's moments like that where I decide I got to keep my sense of humor.
That's just it. If you don't laugh, you're going to cry. But you know,
that's how I felt like reading a lot of these reviews. I mean, they completely missed the allusions to film history and a lot of what I was trying to do in this film. But you know, John's right. There were a couple of good reviews. I mean, the one reviewer compared it to Scorsese. So that made up for it. I'm just wondering how these things aggregate out, John, on on Rotten Tomatoes and all these, because we really live in a strange time. We don't really live in a time when most of the people reviewing films are film reviewers. They just seem to be clickbait accumulators, right? Isn't that what they just
Yes, very much so, which explains an awful lot of reviews
they can.
Well, I have my review done, but I decided to wait till after today's show to run it.
Great.
Look forward to it today.
No, mine is done, so it will go up later tonight along with the audio from this live show when it'll go out as a podcast. So it'll give people a lot of context. But I have to say, one of the strong suits here, Michael, is your cinematography, is what Chris does in tandem, hand in hand with the production design. Going back to the underfunded police and the warehouse for confidential informants for undercover work, I love the fact that we really have a 70s vibe particularly with Mel Gibson's office, with the fake panel on the walls, the fan, the cigarette. It's a 70s vibe that shows just how underfunded some of these departments are, because here this is technically in the 90s. So everything is still very antiquated. And then you bring in this great greenish yellow color wash anytime we're there. And if we're in the actual room with the undercover officers, with Tom, with Mike, and with their associates, it gets colder, steely, but still with a slight green tinge. But you counter that beautifully. Whenever we are at Tom Moran's home with Tom and wife Anna and their son, it's bright, it's open, you've got natural light. There's this incredible contrast visually that translates emotionally in a very metaphoric way. And that is stunning to see unfold in this film because it speaks volumes.
Now, you really get it. That's exactly what we were trying to do. I mean, period movies in general, the criticism I got was very similar to This World and the Fireworks, which is also a period movie set in the 1950s. In order to depict a period clearly, right, and accurately, there's a lot of residue from the prior decade. The 1990s looks more like the 80s and 70s because everything is not up to date. So you have to kind of find that kind of environment to successfully depict the period you're showing. It looks older, again, coupled with the underfunded environment that these guys work in. And, what I like to use, because most of these environments are lit by fluorescent lights that don't work properly and have mismatched fluorescent kind of colors. It gives it that weird greeny tinge. That's pretty much how these environments look.
Yep.
They're very drab and very oppressive. And the color palette to me is the emotional basis of all my films, and I'm very careful in how I execute that. Yeah. So it's really nice to hear you understand the film so clearly. I strongly advocate getting your review out there as quickly as possible. Because your view will be aggregated on Rotten Tomatoes. Correct?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Great.
How challenging was the casting on this one, Michael? I mean, I'm sure you.
Casting me was easy.
I was going to say he probably had to twist your arm and bribe you, John. But this cast is amazing. You've got Mel Gibson, Dominic Purcell, Nick Stahl. This is an incredible performance from Nick. Kate Bosworth, Russell Richardson, and of course, probably that a lot of people will overlook, Eric Valdez as the confidential informant. But let me start with you.
They all crush it, don't they?
Oh my! I'll tell you, this is one of Nick's best performances. Mel is perfect. Everything that we always saw Martin Riggs make fun of in Superior Officers and About the PD in the Lethal Weapon franchise, he now takes all of that and he just dives in and he now becomes the very thing another character of his made fun of. And watching that is really amazing. And you believe every second. And watching him go toe-to-toe with Russell Richardson's Officer Lerner from IA, that is just, I love the volley, the back-and-forth volley between the two. And the fact, Michael, that you bookended the film with that, pretty much. With the opening between Hickey and Lerner, the end, so we know something horrible is going on. Then we see everything unfold. You have the beautiful voiceovers in there. And then we see the ultimate come to Jesus moment for Lerner at the end, where he gets lectured. I love that. But these performances are just first rate. I mean, just blow me away. But now, John, besides getting your arm twisted, what is it about the character of Joe Mangano, the police union rep, that speaks to you? You are just perfect in the role. I love the funeral scene. You're calm. You're compassionate. Just wonderful. And then you get very flippant and have a really cool attitude in an interrogation scene.
Well, it's kind of two levels. Michael is one of my best friends. And I've watched him for years as he was putting this movie together, a lot of fits and starts, as will happen. I've been down that road myself. I know what it feels like. And anytime somebody makes a movie, that's something to celebrate just because of the effort to do it. In the end, there are two reasons. One, I felt that a character like Mangano, every character serves a purpose. His purpose was very clear, to be the support team for these cops.
Yep.
And, to help them through what becomes very, very difficult obstacles, and that includes the families. And I have to give a shout out to Kate Bosworth, because she was absolutely lovely, with virtually no preparation. The other side of it is, when your friend reaches out and says, does it when he didn't say it, but basically it's a friendly face who he knows can work fast. Man, I'm there. I'll help my friend out anytime.
Well, and John,
but it turns out he also had a very compelling project to put together here, and frankly, I wanted to be a part of it. And I wanted to work around people like Nick and Mel and Kate, because I don't always get the chance to do that. I'm a big admirer of all of them. And earlier I equated Michael's style with the great Ken Russell, who was a friend of mine. And, it was something that I just wanted to be a part of. So if I can fulfill the need, and as my mom said, find a need and fill it, then I'm going to. And that's why I showed up.
Well, you also said something very important whenever we're talking indie films, John, and that was you can work fast. And that is due completely to, or 99%, to all of your work in daytime television. Because
no question,
that moves
no question.
At like lightning when you're filming daytime TV.
Yeah, and Michael was up against a very tough schedule, and I thought, well, you know what, man, if I can help him meet his day, then I'll do that. I don't know. Ask him. Why did he want me to play?
Yeah, Michael, why in the world would you want John in your film?
Well, John's a consummate actor, and I really do believe that a lot of the daytime soap actors are so good and so well trained, and they spend so much time getting to exercise their craft. And then again, they're like underappreciated by the critics. They get masses of fan support, but not necessarily critical support. And that's just the nature of, the kind of pervasive snobbery that these, in many cases, undeserving quasi-elitist critics, try and take for themselves. So I always wanted to work with John. John, my son, is a director as well, and he's made a couple of movies that are really, really good. And John played them, And I've just been a big fan of John's work. Besides which, he's such a great friend, and he's such an intelligent human being and a consummate artist. And it was just a question of, finding the right part, shooting it in the right place. Because often, my films in the past were like shot in places like Budapest and Serbia or Bulgaria and all sorts of places where it's very hard to get actors that shipped over there, unless they're like the lead actor in the film. So this, the stars aligned, and we were able to make this happen. And I wanted John for many of my projects, and I intend to work with him for many more. It's almost like when you work with, and they're such great actors, it's like having an ensemble cast that you can work with time and time again. The same thing with Dominique Purcell. This is like my second or third movie I've done with him, and it's just great when your friends are such talent and you can get to work with them, especially when you're on such a fast schedule. It certainly makes it a lot easier.
And
you know they're going to deliver. And John was just wonderful in this film. I really do think the whole cast was incredible. Nick Stahl, what an amazing actor. I mean, I really look forward to working with him again. I think you were absolutely correct about singling out Eric Valdez, who was very, very believable.
Oh my God!
As the junkie senor,
Mm-hmm.
and given that Eric is one of the most clean living human beings I've ever met in my life. I mean, you really realize how great an actor he is when you actually meet him, because he's married to his wife is a famous radio jock in Texas, and they have in Dallas, and they're Eric's biggest vice is he likes to race his Porsche on the weekends. He's absolutely a family man. I mean, he really took that role and made it his own. The cast is wonderful in this film. I really think that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a superb cast, and each person is perfectly cast as well. It's one thing when you can get a great cast like this together. It's another when they are cast appropriately and each actor knows how to bring forth the greatest emotion to serve the character and the story. And your entire cast has done that, Michael.
Oh, yeah, Russell Richardson, who plays Lerner, was another extraordinary actor who, the way he brings that emotional turn at the end of the movie when he goes from the antagonist to dropping the charges against Thornton, it's really, really a powerful emotional turn, and he doesn't miss a beat. And I'm just so surprised that trained critics who watch a lot of movies can't see these things when they praise movies like the 25th version of the Bourne Identity or whatever they see, like those endless recycling of the same movie over and over again, as if these things are like masterpieces by Akira Kurosawa. Like the 27th iteration of John Wick. It's extraordinary.
Yeah,
we might get there.
The latest amusement park for a movie.
Absolutely. No. I mean, the one critic compared this film to, well, you should rather go and see John Wick 103 or whatever the latest version is. And I'm going, you mean the phone-in John Wick, $400 million paycheck for Keanu Reeves? Not that I've got anything against Keanu Reeves. I'd be very happy you'd be churning out John Wicks too year after year, but they would pay me that kind of money. But to compare a movie that is obviously a small indie film with a very heartfelt emotional core to a movie that is just a corporate entity. I mean, movies made at the level of John Wick they're not art. They're like making like a packet of M&Ms. Like, what color are we going to put in the M&Ms packet this week? It's so corporate, and it's designed to be a corporate film, and they're two totally different enterprises. I think we've definitely lost the ability of critics to actually be critical, and I think they need to start by being critical of their own practice. Frankly, right? That's where criticism needs to start at this. We need a kind of meta-criticism, and you know.
Absolutely.
I think there's we could all be reminded that critique is the basis of a critic's job, and there I don't see a critique. I would like to speak just a moment, though, Debbie, to your comment about performance. I can tell you that there's everything comes down to environment, especially in an independent film, on a truncated schedule. One, Michael has to create an environment where everybody feels like somebody knows what's going on. Michael steps on a set and he knows exactly what he's going to shoot, and you can feel that there's a confidence in what's going to be done today. And that gives even somebody with great resourceful powers like a Mel Gibson a real freedom to say, okay, here's what I'm bringing in, and I'm going to do it. And if I'm encouraged to keep doing it, that's what I'm going to keep doing. Michael's very, very good at that. I'm sorry for another Ken Russell comparison, but Ken never auditioned.
By the way, I love Ken Russell.
He would go with who he felt was right for the role and would trust them to do the job that he didn't know how to do.
Yeah.
And so, Michael knows that he's bringing in good actors. Now, in the case of Russell, I think he had 4 days to prep for the lead in the movie.
Yeah, he did.
And
we found him.
We rode out on a plane together out to New Mexico, and we got talking in the car. And he was really pretty freaked out that he wasn't going to be ready. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Let's get together after dinner tonight. We'll run all your lines. So people who want to make an independent film, and we did it the next day as well. People who want to jump in and make an independent film will help each other do it.
Yes.
We want everyone to succeed. And since Russell's become a friend, and I'm glad for it. Nick, I rode in with him on his first day, and he wasn't quite familiar with Michael's work yet. So I said, well, here, watch This World of Fireworks and watch Sea of Darkness, and you'll get a real good idea of who Michael is. And he did. And of course, you saw Nick said to himself, somewhere along the line, he must have said, I can trust this guy. And he created, and I mean, I'm with you. I think it's one of the best performances Nick has ever given.
Yeah.
I think so.
So kudos to Michael for creating the environment that allows everybody to feel like they can be trusted to do their thing.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to let you guys go in just a minute here for my next guest, who is an independent filmmaker with a short that's going to be at LA Shorts Festival next week. But before I go, John, every General Hospital listener out there, and they all eventually find their way to my show because I've had so many of you on the show over the past decade and even longer. I mean, I worked with Finola on Staying Alive, almost 40 years ago, 35 years ago. And Perry was just on the show a couple months ago. Tyler Christopher's been on twice. Ian Buchanan has been on twice. And Wes Ramsey's been on, and it's always talking about these little independent films that you guys all managed to squeeze in your off time from the soap. But I've always got to ask, what can you tell us? Are Kevin and Laura going to have fun in Chechnya?
I have no idea. The show is dark for the entire month of July. We don't come back again until August, and I think Jeannie is gone until September.
Yeah.
So they don't tell me anything.
I'll tell you. Now, is it easier for you now just having to worry about playing one character than vacillating between psychotic Ryan and wonderful Kevin?
it's an easier work schedule, but I'll be honest, I really miss playing Ryan. It was so much fun.
One of the most delicious villains I have ever watched. I mean, in all honesty. Oh, my gosh. Well, guys, this has been a pure joy to have both of you on the show today for Confidential Informant. I hope you'll both come back again in the future on whatever project.
Well, I intend to do many more films with John. I mean, it's wonderful having a friendship that also can be realized creatively in this fashion. It really is fun.
And everybody can now see Confidential Informant. I know it's on Comcast, so it's on demand. It's on digital. And all people have to do is find it, watch it, and enjoy it, and ignore all the noise.
Yeah, you could.
It's also playing in selected theaters around the country. If you can see it on the big screen, I highly recommend it.
But
yeah, it's much. Yeah, you can definitely see it at Cinema Village in New York City and on AMC's around the country in theaters. I think it's still there, and video on demand on Amazon Prime. It's actually the #1 film on Amazon Prime right now, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
As it should be. As it should be, guys. Oh, my God.
Hey, Debbie, thank you so much for having us.
John, thank you so much for making this happen. Michael, I adore your work, and I can't wait to see. I have seen your work before, Out for a Kill, Steven Seagal's work. I saw one of your surfing documentaries, too. I can't remember.
Heavy Water, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the one.
Heavy Water. I said Sea of Darkness. I meant Heavy Water.
Well, these guys, he's done both, so. But
I did both, yeah.
Oh, guys.
Well, I look forward to reading your review, Debbie, and getting it out there so it can counterbalance the Rotten Tomatoes aggregate. The algorithm. We need to fight the algorithm, I guess.
It shall be done, Michael. I promised John already. I promise you now. It shall be done.
And you know what? I love that you're a fan of Mark Pellington. I really love his movies. He's such a great guy, and like me, comes from a real MTV background. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah,
very talented.
I've known Mark since his music video days. So, gentlemen,
cool guy.
Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your week. And hopefully,
thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that was Michael Oblowitz and Jon Lindstrom talking Confidential Informant. And now, the very patient, wonderful Benjamin Pollacck is with us. Hello, Benjamin.
Hello.
Thank you so much for bearing with us and
no problem.
Running a little behind, with having two guests on the show talking about the same film. Get a little bit backed up sometimes. But boy, oh boy, whatever happened to Johnny Faith? This brought me to tears. This has all the feels. It tugs at the heart. The Alan Chodakowski, your cinematographer. This is beautiful.
Oh yes, he is. He's quite a thing. Yes, he is.
I mean, it's just the poignancy and the heart in this film. It's 24 and a half minutes long, and it speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I watched it, I think, 3 times in a row.
Oh. Well, I've seen it a few times myself. So, yes, I know. Yeah.
Just so beautiful.
Thank you.
Tell the audience, tell the listeners, what is the story of whatever happened to Johnny Faith? How would you describe it?
Okay. So Johnny Faith is, I guess the fair thing to say is I've always wanted to do a real drama, that was close to my heart. And I'd lost my father before I had found this story. And I have a father-in-law who is very much like the character Johnny Faith. And so I wrote a story really about a man who's human and has these human frailties and discovers really who he is at the last few stages of his life, and wants to right a wrong that he knows he did, that he made on his own fears, and he does. He does.
And we're not going to give away what these things are, but
right.
what I love, the visual grammar and the structure
Thank you.
of this film, because we have moments where it looks like Johnny is breaking the fourth wall, talking to us, but
Right.
in fact, he's really reliving moments from his past in his mind.
Yes.
And you create the visual grammar that you and Alan bring in there with dissolving from present
Right.
to past, but speaking in the present to the past is so almost ethereal.
Right. We worked on that for quite a bit, and the thing is, the script itself was only 14 pages, but it was 8.5 months in the making, and once we started filming, and there was a lot of time in between the past and the present in terms of filming, and so we had to really cement in what we were going to do and what we wanted, we wanted the audience to understand. Practically,
Yes.
So, and Alan is such a wonderful cinematographer, and really, between the two of us, we were able to, I think, really nail that. Those things look like they're happening at the same time, but they're not.
I mean,
not even close.
It is just, it's elegantly done. It's exquisitely done.
Thank you.
And that adds so much emotional gravitas, and poignancy.
It's classic filmmaking, right?
Mhm.
It's like it's the stuff that they taught me at AFI. It's really classic filmmaking, and going for the narrative and understanding the narrative, building on the narrative, and understanding, how that's going to translate to the audience, and the right narrative rhythm. And I think if anything, we really nailed the narrative rhythm, because it's only 24.5 minutes long. It's a lot going on in there.
There is a lot, but you hit the pacing is fabulous, and you hit all these key emotional beats. And what I find really lovely about the film is that you keep your lensing light, bright, and beautiful, with slightly upping the saturation a little bit.
Yeah.
And it really buoys the emotion so that we never feel depressed. We feel some sadness. Yes, people, when you watch it, when you see this at LA Shorts Fest, have some tissues in your pocket. I'm just telling you. You've been warned. Have some tissues in your pocket, because
I think that's what makes the film successful, because we have at least 3 notes in the film that will more than likely affect you. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so and then a film that length, if we can get you to giggle once or sniffle once, we're a success. And I think we do it more than once.
Well, you definitely bring in some giggles, most particularly with Wayne Knight as music agent Larry Cohen, Newman himself.
Isn't he spectacular?
Oh my God. I didn't know. I knew he was cast in here. I did not know what was coming. And the minute he gets on screen and he answers his phone and it's Johnny Faith on the end of the line, and first he's hesitant, but then when he finds out there may be millions of dollars to be had, turns on a dime, and it's just flat out funny.
It's funny. He's funny and real. I think because he surprised me. When we started doing the first half of the scene, the depth of character that he really went to. I mean, we talked about it, and we visualized it. But when he got on set, it really became very, very real for him, and it was a wonderful experience working with him. And when really he's hurt. You know, he's a man who's hurt. His brother hurt him. You know, and you see it. You really see his pain. You know, before the funny, and then it's funny, and then it's really great.
You know, and then it gets even more hilarious. You know, he escalates the hilarity, actually.
He does. Yeah.
So that if we break this into 3 acts within the 24 minutes, by the time we get down to the last 5 minutes, he ups the ante even more.
Right. One more gun he fires. Yeah.
One more, you know, comes out there. Now, Johnny Faith himself, played by Frank Noon. I mean, everybody has seen him. They'll recognize him immediately from all of his commercials, his one-offs in various TV series. Plus, he also is a professional musician. He has played with Def Leppard. And he does his own singing in the film. There is a beautiful, beautiful end title
Isn't he
song.
Something?
Oh, my.
Isn't he something?
His voice is
so
amazing.
Right. I'll tell you a funny story. Here. Jim Belushi wanted to play the lead. He wanted to play Johnny Faith, and we wound up talking for two months or so. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we couldn't come together on the money. We just didn't have enough money for this superstar to play the role. And I had originally, as I think I told you to begin with, written the part based on my father and my father-in-law. It was like an amalgamation of those two men. And Frank Noon is my father-in-law.
Oh, my gosh.
When things were looking their worst and we didn't look like we were going to make this film, and I actually went to the hospital because I had to have my gallbladder out, and they weren't letting me out, and I didn't know what was happening. I thought maybe I was sicker than I was. It turns out I was fine, but I just made a promise right there in the hospital that, you know what, I'm going to make this film. I'm going to make it with Frank Noon. And that's what he came to pick me up that day, and I said, you're hired. and we just started doing it. And he is so wonderful, and it's such the right choice because he wanted this. He wanted to show the world how awesome he is, and he did. You know, it was quite something.
He captured... he commands the screen, but he captures your attention and draws you in immediately.
Yeah.
When he comes on screen. Immediately.
Yeah, he's just loaded with charisma. Loaded.
He lights up, which is also why you and Alan had to keep this film from practically light and bright as well as tonally, because he lights up the screen. There is no way you could cast him and make this a dark and dour film. Right. I just don't see that happening.
Right. One of the things we discussed too, I mean, one of the things about the character was that he was really on a doomed mission, and we certainly didn't want to depress the audience. I mean, you know, it's really, sort of from the beginning that things aren't right with him, and he never let his smile down. His spirit never went down, just like my father. When he wasn't doing well, you'd never know it because he always had a smile on his face, and he never complained. And that's Johnny Faith.
I mean, Johnny Faith gets punched in the eye by in a bar. He's beat up, and he's still smiling. Smiling. Frank is just amazing in this role. And the minute he came on screen, I recognized him from all the times I've seen him pop up in one-offs and in ads.
Sure.
But I'd never seen him do a complete part, a complete role all the way through.
Sure, he's done theater, and that's where I've seen him perform. Sort of off Broadway-esque, if you will, in L.A. But so I knew he could do it. I knew he had the charisma, and just somebody has to give him that opportunity.
And of course, who else do you bring in here? Bruce Greenwood.
There's a story there too.
Oh, let's hear the story about Bruce.
All right. Well, first, Bruce Greenwood is the most professional actor I have ever met in my entire life. I mean, I've been around. I'm almost 60, and I've worked with many. And he's just the most professional. And really like a faucet. You turn him on, and he pours out this brilliant acting, and then that's it. You know, it's just amazing. He actually read the script and also wanted to play the lead, Johnny Faith. And as it turned out, he was also this amazing musician and singer and songwriter. And so he sent me his music, and as you hear the music in the piece,
it's fabulous.
In the bar, that's. I'm sorry?
It's fabulous. That's Bruce. It's fabulous.
Yeah, right. So anyway, he got cast on The Resident, and you know, before we could sort of work out anything else, he had to go. So that was that. So that's why he didn't play the lead. But then I called him later when I was going, and I'm like, I know you really like this production, you like the piece. Would you consider playing the Doctor? And he said, yeah, of course, right away. And we worked out a schedule, and he came in and played the Doctor. And then when I edited it, because I also edited the film, you know, I used temporarily some of his music in the bar, and then it became so ingrained in what I had done that I begged him to use the music, and he let me use the music. So he's a super talented guy.
Well, I mean, talk about music. I mean, Frank is writing and performing. Bruce has written songs and performed them. Then who do you get in here as maybe musical icing on the cake? You got Rusty Anderson playing himself.
The Rusty. He is the most awesome guy. He is, you know, Paul McCartney's guitarist.
Yes.
And he is super friendly, super nice guy. We met at a party. He doesn't live too far away from me here in Malibu. And we became friends, and I asked him one day if he'd be interested in being in my film, and he was like, you bet. So, and then he wrote music, which was even more insane.
You know, Benjamin, how did you hit this great musical trifecta here?
I come from a musical background. I think I'm just drawn to it. And my mother and father were both professional opera singers, and you know, I've done work with INXS and the guys from Smash Mouth, and you know, all that when I was directing music videos. So you know, it's sort of my thing.
Oh my! Because when I saw Rusty Anderson pop up, I'm like, oh my God!
Right? Isn't he awesome? And he, you know, he's an actor too. Suddenly, I mean, wow! You know,
who knew?
Musician, amazing.
Because before I knew him as being as part of Paul McCartney's band, I knew him as a session guitarist.
Right.
So, I'm one of those strange people that, you know, I grew up in the days of the Wrecking Crew. So,
very cool.
You know, you pay attention to your session people.
Sure. And he's the most amazing guy. You know, what can I say? And super talented. Wow. Yeah.
Now, you know, as you came up with this and you got this written and you are directing, you're writing, and you're editing, did you storyboard? Did you storyboard this out? Did you shot list it out?
Yes. Yes. You know, Alan and I are both classically trained, so you know, certainly in the more difficult, complex scenes, we started drawing stick figures and you know, wound up doing like every shot. And of course, when you get out in the field, you know, we're loose, and we use that as our frame, and then make sure that we're getting what we're getting. And obviously, the reality of the scene, whatever that is, will dictate if we make any changes. But yeah, it was really very well thought out before we did it.
Now, because you were also editing as you were shooting, were you kind of doing an edit in your head, or? Oh,
most definitely, yes. Yes, it's a massive advantage, I believe, if the director is the editor. I started as an editor. I went to the American Film Institute and got a master's degree in narrative film editing. And I was actually the last year to edit on film, which was fun. But anyway, but editing is you know, where your structure is. You know, it's where all the narrative comes together. It's where the rhythm happens, you know, and you know, Alan gives me those wonderful tools to be able to use for my rhythm. It's just so wonderful. But yes, knowing how I was going to put it together, knowing the edit in my head first was a huge advantage, because you know, we're not a big budget film, so we want to economize. But on the other hand, we didn't want to shoot, you know, more than a page and a half a day. We wanted to give that a kind of attention to every scene. Mm-hmm. So and then the more complex things, like in the in the bar, we really should have shot listed that out, and then looked at a million bar scenes, famous bar scenes, from Quentin Tarantino all the way down to whomever, and just to see how it was filmed and the feel and the milieu, just to get the grittiness of that bar, and make it as real as possible. So yeah, there was a lot of work that went into that with Alan and myself.
Well, I can testify that your bar scenes were very realistic.
Thank you.
Based on personal experience, I can say they were very, very authentic. Now, you mentioned something really important with the edit, and that's the rhythm. But we've also got the rhythm of the music itself in this film. How important, how did that inform your editing process? Because
I'm one of those guys who finds the music first before I do the editing. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be the music that I'm going to use, but I find the milieu or the right tonal piece and start using that to find a narrative structure within each scene. So each scene has got a sort of, a hill and a valley and a hill and a valley, and finding the right music helps you realize that narrative rhythm, right? And then, of course, you got to make sure you know where you're going. But I mean, to be able to bring the right amount of happiness and the right amount of despair without hurting anybody and hurting the audience. And I think that's what the narrative rhythm is.
And you really succeed with it, and you take us on the emotional journey. We feel that. But what you also do is you never linger too long. You stay on a beat just enough so we feel it.
Right.
And
I was blessed because I had such great performances. And when I was in the editing room, even when I was on set, I mean, I got to tell you, I'll tell you a quick one. Of course, Debbie Pollak is the first woman that you see, and
she plays Joan.
She was in 16 Candles.
Yep.
She plays the woman who gets hugged at the end, big-breasted woman at the end with the Asian guy. I forget the scene, but it's the famous scene. It's a famous scene. And we rehearsed a few times. She got on set, started to say goodbye to him in this scene, the subtext, and it was so real. I had to call cut because I was all steamed up. I was losing it. I was like, oh my God, this is really good. She's really good. She set the bar for our acting at a level of Meryl Streep on steroids. And it was like, I couldn't believe how well and how brilliant it was coming together. So that helped a lot when I was doing the narrative structure, because every tone, every note that I wanted to go for was believable.
Well, and watching her, her face, when she's asking Johnny, she's going, are you leaving? You can't be leaving.
Right.
Are you leaving? And it's this look of shock and sadness and heartbreak on her face.
Right.
And I love that Alan holds the camera on her face a couple times in those opening scenes. But then we also get the joy. There's the moment of joy when Johnny gifts her with something.
Yeah.
And
I think while we're talking about Alan, I think it's important to say that, Alan's cinematography was as much a character in the film as any other of the actors, right? And it was always with us. So, we took our time and allowed, especially in the editing room, allowed the cinematography to speak, allowed the shot to play out, and not to go for quickness of the scene, but to feel the cinematography helping us move through that narrative rhythm also. And that was huge. And that's something Alan and I talked about a lot. And Alan is really one of the most talented unsung cinematographers so far. I mean, it's just like, I can't wait for him to explode into other stuff, because he is super talented. He's like a real artist, and it's such a pleasure to work with a guy like that.
Yeah, after seeing this film,
the many levels of cinematography.
I can't wait to see more of his work.
Me too.
Because I'm looking at those scenes where Johnny is walking through the desert and under a hot sun, and the camera sits there and just slowly follows, but you go widescreen on that, so we really get this metaphoric sense of loneliness or aloneness, which are two different things, but
sure.
it speaks, and it's just so beautiful to watch unfold. It's almost as if you don't want to breathe because you're going to disrupt that moment of seeing that scene. Just really incredible. And I've got to ask you, Benjamin, because you come out of music videos, you've done other shorts.
Yes.
You've done your doc out of Malibu. But was there a learning curve for whatever happened to Johnny Faith, because this is a narrative, a dramatic narrative short?
Yeah, I'm a writer, and so I'm used to narrative. But this was definitely the hardest thing to do for me, because in a drama, all you have is the narrative. If in a comedy you got jokes, in a horror film you have the frights and the scares, and that could save your film. But in a drama, all you have is your guts and every little piece that went into it. And if the moment you don't believe a character, or you're out of the narrative, like, hey, this isn't really possible, you lose, and it's over. So it's really hard to do. And was there a learning curve? Yeah, wow, it was. But it was nose down and total commitment, and never giving up on that vision and making sure that vision was right. So it was quite a different approach, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
What would you say is the greatest thing you learned about yourself as a filmmaker in making Whatever Happened to Johnny Faith?
That I could be a serious filmmaker. I think, doing music videos and comedies and even horror stuff, fun. But, there's a craft in filmmaking that may not necessarily survive. And that was this classic filmmaking, to understand a narrative, and how a narrative will affect the person watching it. And not just trying to come up with some entertainment, but trying to sort of touch parts of people inside, like their soul. And that's a kind of becoming a lost art. I think, the older I get, the less I see of it. So,
I agree with you. So I would be remiss not to ask you about your costuming for the character of Johnny Faith. It looked like the cowboy boots and the jacket came right out of Nudies when it was still hanging out there on Lancashire.
Right. And that's something that's Alice K. Joseph. She's awesome. And she was also the production designer. And she's a multi-talented young lady. But when we came up with Johnny Faith, the idea was to keep him blue. And as blue as possible in terms of, his look. And I wanted Western, and she went straight to this thrift shop and found this costume, and it was just like, that's him. That's the guy. And interestingly enough, when he put that costume on for the first time, Frank Noon, when he put that on, he just became the character 100%. I mean, he saw himself, and suddenly, bing, he was there.
Well, we even see that in the first act of the film, when first we see him with his trailer and he's taking stuff out of it, or his trailer home, but then he goes to his car and he gets out the jacket and he puts it on, and it's like a totally different man. Yeah,
he's ready.
He's ready.
He's ready to go on his journey.
He's got his armor is on. Yeah. But I have to say, I hope that those were very comfortable boots that he was wearing.
They were not. He complained about it a lot, and to this day complains about it. So he's bitter about it. But it was the right thing to do.
I saw he was wearing those cowboy boots, and all I kept thinking, and they look almost like snakeskin. But I'm thinking, oh God, I hope they're Tacovas, because Tacovas are very comfortable. Obviously, these than were not Takovas. So
no, they were not, and they were not. He was upset, but we made it.
Oh God! Now,
yes.
The film is screening next week on the 20th, on Thursday, at LA Shorts Fest. How exciting is that for you?
I'm passing out. I'm that kind of excited. The thing about this film was that it was a real passion project, and I never even thought about what would happen when it was done. So festivals and screenings, I never even considered because my mind wasn't there, So, and that we got any plaudits at all, it's just a surprise to me. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to death to be able to see it on a big screen. I'm thrilled to be able to share it with people that way. And I'm also thrilled that we're being recognized, which is very nice, So now I'm beside myself.
Is this the festival premiere?
This is the premiere, yes.
The premiere of the film.
Yes.
So it has not played anywhere else before.
Nowhere else.
This is the world premiere.
World premiere, yeah.
Wow. And now, I have to say this to you, but as soon as the reason I watched it 3 times in a row, I love it so much. I would love to see a feature about this character. I kid you not. I would love to see a feature about Johnny Faith and even dive more into the relationship between Agent Larry Cohen and Johnny Faith.
Right. And by the way, just a trivia moment.
Yes.
The young fellow who plays Johnny Faith's son at the end, Jackson Rowden, is okay. Wait a minute. James Brolin's cousin.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Josh Brolin's cousin. That's what it is. Josh Brolin's cousin. There it is.
Hey, all these acting families, you got to keep it going.
Right.
I
actually cast him at Josh Brolin's house because my son and his daughter are in the same class, and they had a birthday party. And while I was there, I met Jackson, and I cast him that day.
Wow.
Wow.
A lot of serendipitous things happened to get this film made, Benjamin.
Yeah. Also, do you know who Fritz Coleman is?
Yes, I do.
Well, and I couldn't think of anybody else to do the news broadcast but Fritz. And through a friend, he saw the script, and he not only said yes, but he insisted on doing the shot himself at his own studio and sending it to me, and he did, and he would refuse to charge me.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm like, no, I have to pay you. It's a SAG film, and he said, well, whatever, you just pay me the minimum.
Oh my!
And I got to say, I don't want to talk about how amazing Bruce is, but he did something very similar. So I mean, Bruce put his love into this film, which was quite something.
Well, it's obvious everybody put their love into this film. It's all there on screen, Benjamin.
Thank you.
It truly is. I've had a couple other films that I've looked at for LA Shorts Fest, and so far, this is my only must-see festival film for LA Shorts Fest.
Wow.
If people are only going to go see one slot of films, only see one short, they need to make sure it's this one, Whatever Happened to Johnny Faith. And I can't wait to find out how, and I know Kim will tell me, how the audience reacts. And hopefully, maybe we'll even see this become a feature one day.
It would be great. It would be great.
Oh, Benjamin, I can't thank you enough. This has been such a joy to have you on the show today. And I hope you'll come back again one day.
The next piece, you bet. I will. Thank you very much.
Well, then you better get to work.
I'm doing it. My wife calls it surfing the void.
Aha.
While you wait.
Oh, Benjamin, thank you, and have a wonderful time at the festival next week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
awesome.
Benjamin.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was writer, director, editor Benjamin Pollack. Whatever Happened to Johnny Faith? World premiere, LA Shorts Fest, next week, July 20th. It is a beautiful, beautiful short film. And if you're in the LA area, please, and looking for something to see next week, check out LA Shorts Fest. And definitely check out Whatever Happened to Johnny Faith. Fabulous. Oh, well, that is all the time we have today. And yes, we ran over again, as you all know that we always do. Huge thanks to Jon Lindstrom for coming on the show, for bringing Michael Oblowitz with him to talk about their film Confidential Informant, which select theaters, on demand, Amazon Prime, digital. It really is a very, very good film. See it. And of course, Whatever Happened to Johnny Faith next week at LA Shorts Fest. And we'll be back. We won't be here next week because I'm going to be celebrating my 65th birthday. So we'll be back on July the 24th. I'm not sure who's with us. I have 4 possibilities that I'm tentatively holding slots for. But in the interim, more exclusive interviews are up on BehindTheLensOnline.net. We'll have some more reviews out. One of them is going to be Confidential Informant later on tonight. So, until July 24th, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.